I do not see a raised hand feature. I never.
I usually let you know when it's fine.
Okay. Alma will take care of that function.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. It's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to call the Board of Commissioners for the City of Las Cruces Utilities meeting to order. There are some rules that we have to follow in keeping straight because this is a remote meeting. Anyone who does speak needs to identify themselves before speaking. Members of the public are able to observe this meeting on YouTube. Members of the public were able in advance to submit comments. And there is a comment which I will read at the appropriate time. If the video feed fails, I need to suspend the meeting until that is fixed. And I believe that that takes care of it. Oh, any votes will be by roll call as they always are. So given that, the first order of business is the inquiry as to whether any member of the board or any member of the staff on the call has any conflict of interest with any item on the agenda. Hearing none.
None from staff.
None from staff and none from the chair. Thank you. The next item of business is acceptance of the agenda. I have a motion to accept.
Commissioner Johnson.
Carmichael.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson, motion and a second.
Carmichael, second.
Commissioner Carmichael, second. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none. Is Vice Chair Archuleta on the call yet?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet.
Work with staff to try and get everyone ready.
Okay. Skipping for the moment, Vice Chair Archuleta, Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg, Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
Thank you. And the chair, yes. The next item of business is public participation. And as I said, I do have a written communication from a member of the public who asked that his communication be read into the record. And it's fairly lengthy. Okay, this is from Mr. Frank Carroll, who is a property owner. His property is located at 407 South Motel Boulevard in Las Cruces. And his statement is as follows. I feel this level of communication is only necessary when you have reached an endless of common sense within your lower management structure of this organizations. I do not want to ramble or rant into too many details at this level, but encourage an investigation of my facts and please return to me via email or letter your findings. Obviously, if I thought your lower management was engineering competent in OSHA and engineering, state and federal opinions of written facts, I would not be contacting you. Dealing with this lower level, I find they feel just because they say they are correct, that is the end of matters without any engineering or facts to present other than words of meaningless verbal garble. I only deal with engineering facts that can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt and liability in this case. Let me try to explain in brief as possible at this level. I warn you, for your fact finding, you will run into the same engineered, unsubstantiated facts I did, so beware. Two types of people in Las Cruces as to utilities. One, those who have official accounts and fall under the rules of utilities. Two, those citizens who do not have utilities accounts and fall under no rules of utilities. I am number two. I have a blank lot, have no utilities account with the city of Las Cruces for the 8 years I have owned this lot. Past owner did have utilities connected long ago, but officially disconnected. Now, as when a customer in the past, in this case more than 8 years ago, or any customer disconnects, all services are disconnected at the city demarcation points. And in this case, sewer also, because it is on force main and by OSHA standards and other engineering requirements, each lot has its own demarcation valve to protect the city from residents for disconnects and reconnects, just like gas, water, and electric. Problem: this valve is not shut off. City has never proven it's shut off. Continues to back up sewage into my property from the previous owner's pipe from more than 8 years ago. When the lakeside water line was installed, 2 city employees I have pictures of came onto my property illegality, drilling a hole into my pipe, cracked the check valve, and now it randomly leaks up to the surface, depending on the pressure of that day in the city force main, verified by state and federal. Mrozik, your city rep, has repeatedly tried to blame me as though I am a customer, failing to understand I am not a utilities customer. I have never generated any sewage. I do not fall under any utilities laws or regulations. In turn, city is damaging a citizen with Las Cruces sewage because your gate valve will not turn off. I have pictures when exposed when water line was installed. Those people tried to turn it unsuccessfully. It's frozen. Mrozik continues to treat me like a customer. I am not. Liability lies with the city. Please check with legal. More than 2 years of this. I am sick of this Mrozik evaluation of this whole situation and his employees did to my property. Undefinable. Want to see the pictures? What are they doing on my property with city equipment in a hole without permission? I was there. I caught them. Now I could go on and on with more and more details and documentation. But at this point, you want to hear from Mrozik, especially now he has caused the federal people to come in and the state to review everything. Now I want this valve fixed. I want no more stories it works, phantom lines all over the place. If that is true, X-ray for them. Those lies hold no more water. Proof will be a site visit by all. Mrozik will turn the valve himself to close and open position. No more lies. It is frozen open. I can show you open pictures of the rusty cast iron valve. Fix it or replace it. Stop this sewage from coming on my property now. Federal is coming back. I sent Mrozik an email last week. looking for our response. He said nothing, did not respond as usual. So I am telling you, do something as your liability is building up. I am not utilities customer. This Las Cruces sewage being pushed onto my property has to stop now. No more lies. I will be waiting to hear from you as my email address is below. Thank you, Frank Carroll, District 4. And he does provide his email address. I'm going to thank Mr. Carroll for his comments and ask staff to look into this and report back to us. There were no other public comments received in advance. Okay, Robert Cabello, go ahead.
1 second. Hello. Hi, I'm Robert Cabello with the City Legal. And obviously utilities should look into the complaint. I'm not sure this is a really good position, a good place to be discussing potential litigation. It looks like he keeps saying liability. To me, it seems like he's threatening litigation. So I don't think this venue is the appropriate venue to be discussing something like that, or even personnel matters of that nature.
Mr. Cabello, we have no intention of discussing it. I have read his comment into the record as he requested, and I have thanked him for his comment, and we will say nothing more about it at this point in time.
Excellent.
Okay, Mr. Sorg, Commissioner Sorg?
Yes. Yes.
Did you have something to say?
No, not at all.
Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, the next item is the administrative report.
Mr. Provencio?
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Jose Provencio, Deputy Director, Business Services. I will brief you on ongoing activities regarding billing and receivables and activities and in Customer Central. I believe we need to have the PowerPoint displayed.
Working on it.
Hold on.
Okay, we're still working on it.
Okay.
They do exist. I've
Chair?
seen them.
This is Gil Sorg.
Go ahead.
Yeah, at the bottom of your screen, there's several icons there that one of which is the mute and start video. If you click on the one that says participants, it'll bring up a list of everybody that's in the meeting. And in the bottom of that list, there way down at the bottom, there is well, there was an.
Okay, we're past that.
Okay.
That
Let's go ahead with the administrative report.
Certainly.
Okay, I wasn't quite finished, but that's all right.
Okay, proceeding with the briefing for Utility Assistance Program for the month of July. The administrative report has the data as it was recorded for July. We continue to provide assistance in the various manners that we have set up to help our customers, including the income or the bill payment assistance. The data is as it's presented, and if I could ask the slide to be forwarded.
We're doing a tag team here, so.
Okay. Thank you. The other remaining programs are data is provided in slide 4, and the update with respect to the actual income assistance, or excuse me, bill payment assistance is provided here in the lower part of the slide. We started the fiscal year with the fresh funding or the renewed funding of $100,000, and as at the end of the month for July, we had assisted 145 residential customers to the tune of a little over $27,000. We can forward to the next slide, number 5. Provide an overall view in graphical representation as to what's available for the program under the new fiscal year funding. And before I conclude here, just to let you, the board, know that there are efforts underway on the general fund side to infuse additional funding under the emergency bill assistance program related to the pandemic of $150,000. We are working with the individuals in City Hall to have that put in front of the City Council and have that approved for the rest, until the funding is exhausted. But I just wanted to make sure that you were in the loop in terms of the additional ongoing efforts for additional funds. I'll stand by for any questions on this part before moving on to the budget review for fiscal year 20.
Okay, questions on this? Seeing none, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, if I could ask this PowerPoint to be forwarded to the fourth quarter budget review. And scroll one more page. Thank you. Summarizing the activity of actual revenues and expenses for the fiscal year. The first slide presents the total review of actual revenues and expenses from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20. With the exception of gas, the data follows as expected. The revenues are increasing, actual revenues are increasing from the prior period to the current fiscal year. Gas tends to be a little confusing. Well, not confusing, but you have to consider the impact that the cost of gas has on their budget projections. With that, I'll go into the details and discuss the highlights for gas utilities. And if we could advance the PowerPoint, thank you. Briefly, the budget performance on the projections that were as they came in to actuals are summarized on the far right hand, where that was budget for revenues are a little bit below what was expected, and the total expenses were also a little bit below the projections when the budget was prepared. The costs on the revenue side, especially on the cost of gas, the initial projections at the start of the preparation of fiscal year 20 budget, there was probably a best effort to estimate what the market conditions would be for gas. And fortunately, it still reflects the good conditions going on in the gas market, where cost of gas continued to decrease to a point on average for fiscal year 20 as opposed to when compared to fiscal year 19. On the expenditure side, as we wrap up the fiscal year, the impact here in terms of being lower was a major project on the regulatory review and audit side for gas that did not occur in this fiscal year. So it'll be projected to start up in fiscal year 21. So it was a matter of expenditure timing that brought this in, along with some of the other expenses in terms of vacancies that are still being worked on to get filled and staffed. If I could ask the slide to advance to water. On the performance for water, clearly indicative of the impact of the increases that we had and put into place for the water utility. The summary of the projected amount was pretty much in line, a little over in terms of what we budgeted or projected for fiscal year 20. That's fortunate because really sales are fairly flat. Production is fairly flat. And on the expenditure side, it was a good job in terms of matching up or projecting pretty much on the spot in terms of expenditures on the budget level, coming in at 99%. If we can move forward to wastewater. The wastewater budget performance to the projections are fairly within the estimated margin. The available budget in terms of revenue was slightly low. However, keep in mind from the very first page that year to year wastewater revenues did increase. It was just a projection. The projection for budget purposes was slightly on the downside. Expenses also were pretty much in line. They were a bit closer in terms of projection, but nothing out of line with respect to their operations. I could ask the PowerPoint be advanced to summarize solid waste performance with respect to budget projections. On the budget projections with solid waste, we have, at least on comparing the budget projections, that they had a fairly good performance in terms of revenue. Now, I just want to highlight here on the revenue side that there was a slight error. There was an error in terms of the projection of the revenues. So it looks like there was more revenue collected on a projected basis, but this will be trued up going forward. On the expenditures, we have projected expenditures coming in at 90% of the target. Main driver here were beneficial fuel prices that the solid waste operations was able to take advantage of or get the benefit of. And of course, some of their efforts in terms of dealing with or working with their vacancies also. We can move forward to shared services summary. At this point for the total fiscal year 20, budget expenditures were 83% of projections. Main driver here are the vacancies that are working. We are working diligently and to the best efforts to get staffed. And with that, I will pause and stand by for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions about this? As I remember, the changes in the water rates didn't really show any impact in terms of of diminished use. Is that true?
Chairman, Commissioners, that's correct. We provided some information last meeting that showed that there was no change in the upper tier levels. If you look at the detail provided in the total packet, the volume of production levels weren't that much higher than they were from the previous period.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Walsh will do the activity report now, HR activity.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I will give you our monthly HR activity report. First of all is vacancies. As you can see from the report, we are currently at 50 vacancies as of the end of July. That hasn't been a lot of change, but I did want to point out to you, I've created a different chart than what you're used to seeing month by month regarding our vacancies by line of business. The reason being, we are still showing 50 vacancies, but we've made major improvement in that we've already filled 44 positions just in the last 10 months. And so I wanted to give you a chart so you can see where that change differentiation was happening. So if you look at the chart with vacancies by lines of business, I'm giving you the total number of vacancies in red per line of business, as well as what the delta has been since November of last year. So I'll give you an example for water. We currently have 10 vacancies, but the change has been a decrease of 8, meaning that in November, we started with 18 vacancies in water, and now we're down to 10. Whereas all the other lines of businesses, for example, the administrative services, we're at 10 vacancies when we started at 6. So you can see in the growth in yellow, we've actually increased our vacancies on 4. So this just gives you a little bit of a better picture of where we're performing within the lines of business. The solid waste is a really good example because you'll see them jump down to 0 and then back up to 2, but they typically hover there. And this chart will give you a better visual of what's happening each month within each line of business. Next slide, please. If you look at our hiring process, we've obviously been impacted by COVID-19 and our current remote work situation, as well as the hiring situation in this COVID positive world. For example, right now we're at an average of 37 weeks to fill a vacancy within the LCU. If you look back to the charts in March and April, we're hovering around 26 to 25 weeks, and then you see a big 10-week jump as we go into this COVID environment. So we don't expect any major improvements from that situation until we return to some normalized system of operations when it comes to hiring. Our averages are the same as every month. It's growing a little bit. We're now, as I mentioned, averaging 37 weeks to fill a position. When we look at the task flow by owner, for the month of August, or as of the end of July, 70% of our work stoppages regarding hiring are with HR. So that means HR has to perform a step or complete a step for us to move on to the next step of the hiring process. 70% is HR, 30% is on our side. So that may mean something like we haven't finished interviews or ranking employees or turning in our hiring process requirements. So that's where the breakdown is as of the end of the month. Next slide, please. I did change our tracking date back to October 15th because that's when I started with really good data. And I can tell you, we have filled 44 positions. So even though it looks like we're still hovering around the 50, 45 area, we filled all those positions. When you think about our timeline though, it takes an employee 2 weeks to 4 weeks to retire, or maybe they've been promoted to another position or they're leaving the city. That happens very quickly when an employee leaves. So like I said, it's between 2 and 4 weeks when an employee vacates a position. However, as you saw before, it takes us 37 weeks to fill that same position. So they can quickly retire, leave, transfer, move up, get promoted, but we can't quickly respond to opening that vacancy. So we are going to see that number grow slowly as we try to catch up. I also want to let you know what's holding us up in those 50 positions. Right now, we're waiting for 5 reclassification requests. Those have to go through budget and then through HR, meaning that maybe we've moved them from one program to another, and we need that response before we can even post the position. That has to be done on the City Hall side. We're waiting on 4 new job descriptions that we've remitted through PAQs. One example I've written here is our senior gas locator PAQ. That's a position we wanted to create that would be a promotional position and opportunity within the locators in the gas line of business. But we've been waiting on that since October. And so what I've told Lucio and his supervisor, Joe, is just post a regular locator position. Let's get that filled so we have boots on the ground. And then once we finally get a job description, we'll figure out how to post that position, how to make it happen within our budget. As of August 3rd, we were waiting on 1 position to be approved through the hiring review committee. I think now we're waiting on 2 to go through that committee. And on 6 of the positions as of that date, we were waiting for HR to release candidates. So we can't even start evaluating or interviewing or ranking until those are released to us. So I'm very happy to report that I believe yesterday, we finally got a release of candidates on some of our OAS positions. And that's huge for us, those office assistant seniors. That keeps our boat running. And so that's good news. We finally got a release of candidates there. Next slide, please. Filling the HR coordinator position has been our top priority, and thank you very much to our city manager who's helped us push that through. We finally received a job description for a staffing specialist. So that will be this HR position. We're still waiting on HR because they have to load the job description and the position into NeoGov. And once that happens, we could requisition the position and it goes out to posting to the world to hire it. So we're still waiting on that. But we finally got the first big hurdle, which is the actual job description and creation of that job. So it's going to be a new position for the entire city. So other departments who may need such a position can do so under this process. We're still focusing on staffing while complying with our COVID-19 policies. We always want COVID safe practices and we continue to do that. The overtime report is still pending and I apologize for that. We've just been a little bit I won't say I've been a little bit overwhelmed with some of the reporting that we need to do and some of the changes that we've been having happen. So with that will be the longevity report as well as the temporary staff analysis. I have the initial reports, but I don't want to release anything unless I know it's correct 100%. So we are waiting on some postings to Munis, which is our financial management system and software, in order to have those reports correct. So we've found some errors within the system that need to be resolved on the other side. The intern program, I'm disappointed that I haven't made any progress in that, but it's been a little tough on the onboarding process and working with the schools since some of their students are online. LCPS, for example, isn't even doing an ACE program this semester, which is the Alternative Career Education Program. DACC is doing a combination of online classes, mostly online classes. So it's really tough for us to engage with interns right now. But I'm hoping once we have a staffing specialist in place and we get into a more normalized environment post-COVID, or at least hopefully vaccine. I know University of San Francisco, or UC San Francisco's got a great new nasal preventive medication they're supposed to be rolling out soon. So hopefully we'll get in a better environment and my focus is to roll out that intern program or a more expanded intern and journeyman program in 2021. Next slide, please. Any questions on the HR side before I move into our COVID incident management?
Okay. Any questions? Last month, I think the assistant city manager said that they were going to apply pressure to accelerate consideration of this HR position. Did that happen? Did it
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yes. So we do have a job description, and that was the biggest hurdle we were waiting for that staffing specialist, which will be our HR coordinator. And Mr. Maestas did work with us and help get that pushed through. So once it's posted to NeoGov, we're going to open that for a requisition to hire.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing nothing, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll move into our COVID-19 report. Just as we're still operating under our current continuity of operations plan, I can tell you all of Las Cruces utilities, we are 100% operational. We are delivering services, we're doing our job, we're doing the work, and we're reporting every day. Our return to work plan is still in effect under phase 1 through the end of this month. I know the governor has a press conference going on right now. I haven't dialed in yet, but I don't anticipate any orders are going to change. It looks like she'll be talking mostly about schools and census. But so that means our building staffing levels will remain at 50%, and that's pursuant to city management orders to keep the 50% staffing levels. Right now, we only allow 10 or less to gather with masks and or social distancing, and we continue to have our common areas closed. I'll continue to provide weekly sit reps to the city manager and to you as the board members. And we are tracking our PPE weekly. It is sufficient, and we do have an adequate supply for all associates. Next slide, please. We are working to comply with FFCRA, that's the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and that actually allows for expanded FMLA leave, so employees can work with their children with schools being on a full online environment, or if they have medical issues related to COVID-19. Even though we are essential employees, and just like PD and fire, it may not necessarily apply to our employees under federal regulations. However, we're working with our employees to apply this process and give them those benefits as allotted by the city of Las Cruces. And so we're working with them to partner and adjust shifts so they can attend to the needs and educational needs of their children while continuing that 100% operation and delivery of services. Right now, we're only averaging 2 associates per week out for a COVID-related leave or quarantine or extraordinary leave. LCPS did start school online today. So I know it was kind of a weird day for some of our staff trying to get used to this new system. I know my house was pretty anxious this morning as they were all logging in. And I know all our employees are dealing with that type of anxiety and worry and concern that you're doing right by not only your employer, but your family. And so we're trying to work with them to balance those needs. Any COVID positive 19 cases are quarantined pursuant to regulations. NMED OSHA division, or the Bureau, has actually released a new order wherein if we have a positive COVID test in the city of Las Cruces, we have 4 hours to report that to the New Mexico Environment Department's OSHA division. And so we're coordinating that through HR, and they'll do the reporting. We already over comply with everything required, meaning we sanitize our common areas and our work areas 3 times a day, not just daily, but 3 times a day in pretty much every area. So that we will continue those sanitization efforts. We've actually developed an extraordinary leave SOP, which I've shared with all the staff and with our supervisors. So we're operating under how to use that leave in this environment, because when the policy was originally released by the city manager's office, it was for the duration of this pandemic event or public health event. I don't know that anybody anticipated we'd be under public health orders as long as we have been. And I anticipate we'll continue under public health orders well into December. And so we've developed an SOP just to make this clear for all our supervisors. It is considered a draft right now, simply because I'm waiting to hear back from HR on if I'm agreeing with their interpretation and their direction that they've given to us. And the reason being, I'm very paranoid about policy compliance, and I don't want any audit findings or any policy violations, even if it's unintentional. I want that to be addressed. And so I'm waiting on HR to give us their blessing that we are interpreting their interpretation and their directions correctly. We have asked the city manager about the excessive paid leave accrual decision, and that is with the city's executive staff. And Annette Granado with the city manager's office has been great in letting us know they're still talking about it. They'll address it at next week's meeting. We have over 80 employees who have more than 200 hours of annual leave accrued already. And we're already in August, and I don't anticipate they're going to have lots of opportunity. What we've done now, though, is I've contacted all supervisors with totals of any employee who is over 200 hours or 240 hours. That's the maximum they're allowed to carry over at the end of the calendar year. And let them know employee X is close to 280 or is even at, we have some employees who have 300, 320 hours of leave accrued, and pointed out to the supervisors, let's start addressing that now and working with time off and try to get those balances down closer to the 240 limit before the end of the year. I don't think we'll be able to do it with everybody. As you know, we have 50 vacancies. And so we have overtime, we have people who have to work and we have to deliver our services, but at least we can start managing it early and try to shave down some of those numbers. However, we are going to wait on the city manager to make a final decision because this will be impacted for everyone in the city. I know my own family, we haven't traveled anywhere because you can't go anywhere. So I've got plenty of time off even. As far as the pay differential for employees who've had to work during a public health emergency, I know city executive management is going to be taking a proposal to city council for a one-time consideration of emergency operational pay or compensation. So essentially compensation during this public health emergency is there going to be something? So we are not in charge of that process or that policy, but we'll support and follow any direction from city management. Next slide. I'm sorry, are there any questions regarding COVID-19 or our incident management?
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to move on to something completely different now. The LCU strategic business plan. The one thing I'm not going to do is repeat the entire business plan in this presentation. It's a large, significant document. I know all board members have access to that document. If you don't, or if you need another copy, please let Alma or any of the staff members know, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. But what we're going to talk today is just sort of the changes and where we are now. As you know, this plan was adopted back in March of 2019 by both the LCU board and the city council. Within that plan, we identified 8 issue statements. We had 5 major strategic results aligned with those statements. We identified our lines of business within the utility. We identified 40 programs and then had strategic results under each of those programs. So it's a pretty significant document. I can tell you, as part of that, we have a new learning management system training. So that's a PowerPoint presentation within our LMS access for all our associates. And I'm excited to announce that as of June 30th, and in accordance with our own goals, 100% of our associates, even Dr. Garcia, we roped him into finishing it out, even though he pretty much blessed the whole thing. We all took that PowerPoint course and we all took tests. And I can say with certainty that all LCU associates understand our strategic business plan and where their role is associated with that. We did submit revisions this year, and those revisions were approved by the ACM on June 9th. And so we'll go to the next slide and focus on what we've done thus far. This is just a quick summary of the 2019 results listed in the plan and achieved. Of course, you all know the replacement and rehab of critical water well infrastructure has begun. We pretty much come to you quite a bit talking about what we're doing with the well rehabs, and we do that consistently every year. So that's been achieved in the sense that we've started that program and we're continuing to do so and work forward. Another big one achieved was 25% of our preventive maintenance is completed within 3 days, and we very much exceeded that goal in partnership with the City of Las Cruces fleet program within on the City Hall side. By February 2019, the board will review an action plan to implement the 40-year water plan. So we have the water plan in place, and you all requested an implementation plan of how are we achieving all those steps. So of course, Adrian will be speaking to you later, or Dr. Garcia later, about what we're going to do moving forward in order to actually implement that action plan. Next slide. In 2019, we also, as I mentioned, we have the LMS system with our strategic business plan training, and we did reach 100% of our associates do know what's expected of them and how it aligns with the strategic business plan. And we also know that more than 75% of city departments and all our partners have a positive collaborative relationship with LCU. I will say the latest results for the agency partners and departments, we have not received those yet for this 2020 year through the survey contractor that works with City Hall. But in the preliminary data, it looks pretty darn good that we're doing well informing our agency partners. Next slide. Now we had other results listed out for 2020 within the strategic business plan. We wanted to make sure our respondents knew who to call when they smell natural gas, and we've exceeded that number. We wanted to make sure our survey respondents know what to flush and not flush. And Alma's going to actually give you a little bit of more information when she discusses our survey. We actually have an article coming out on what not to flush and the fact that flushable wipes really are not flushable. So that's something that we're still working in, but we have achieved that goal. I'm really proud of what our solid waste line of business has done with the green waste tonnage. We wanted to increase it only by 7%, and we've already exceeded 3,000 tons for last fiscal year, the FY20 fiscal year. So that we did a great job taking in that green waste. And what that means, it's diversion. It's waste diversion. We're not taking green waste to landfill. We're actually reusing it and keeping it out. The 2020 diversion rates of recyclable waste is maintained at an average rate of 23% or higher. I know we're at the higher right now. We'll be refining that goal a little bit because waste diversion and recycling, that is something that's a big part of the city's comprehensive plan, otherwise known as Elevate Las Cruces. And so that's going to be a pretty big measure, not only for our strategic business plan, but for the city's comprehensive plan, because that is a focus now, is to reduce waste in our community as a whole. Next slide. So we've also revised results, and those are the revisions we made that were approved by the ACM in June. The original goal for was regarding our conservation program with institutional customers. It was sort of a broad, weirdly written goal that we couldn't measure as well as we wanted to. It was some weird calculations that we had to do. And what we were saying is 20% of institutional customers, so our big industrial customers, will reduce their average by 2%. So we're saying 20% of our customers will reduce by 2%. It was just an odd calculation. So we revised it to say by 2021, our targeted institutional customers will reduce their usage by 5%. What that does is by saying targeted customers, we can identify our super users when it comes to water. Is it a school? Is it an industrial user? If we target those big water users and then work on reduction of their usage by 5%, that's a significant impact to water usage and our conservation efforts. The next one was having to do with our restaurants and IPP, the industrial pollution prevention, and the inspections we do at restaurants because of fat, oil, and grease. That one became an odd goal, particularly through the COVID situation, simply because our restaurants were closed. And so it's easy to reduce grease disposal inspections because everybody's closed. We're not going to do inspections. And so we've revised that goal to say all our food establishment inspections will increase by 5%. So in other words, we're putting it on ourselves to do more inspections and make sure we're educating those users, those restaurant users and businesses. That makes an impact to our sewer system, not just whether or not they fail an inspection. It's that education component in our efforts that really do make an impact to our system. Next slide. In general, we did a lot of editing, just key results to have some better clarification and accuracy now that we know what we're doing 1 year into the plan. We did remove the training program as a program within the strategic business plan, and it doesn't mean we reduce training. What it means is that we move training as a program itself of all the different lines of business and broke it back out to its original line of business. And so the reason we did that is it didn't make sense for Robin or John or Adrian or Lucio to set up very specific training for their staff and then having Carl track that whether or not they're doing it. It was repetitive and it led to inaccuracy in tracking, and it really didn't work out well, especially when it comes to budget. How do you share a budget in one big pot when you don't have it delineated correctly? And so that's what we've corrected. We also revised the solid waste fleet program to solid waste fleet and equipment maintenance, simply because in addition to the trucks that are on the ground and our rolling stock, we also have the chipper that's maintained by solid waste fleet. And so we wanted to make that a better definition. We also added a new strategic result. It's by 2023, 70% of our gas service area, or of the service area, will be serviced by natural gas based on pipeline distribution compared to roadways in our service area. And so it made a lot more sense for us to focus on roadway access, because that's where our lines are going to go in, and are we expanding within those already developed areas. This helps us align with Elevate Las Cruces, where we, the focus of the comprehensive plan now is to improve infill areas and have that population density where infrastructure already exists. So this is a better statement of that in alignment with Elevate Las Cruces, as well as what's actually measurable for the strategic business plan. Let's see, I'm really excited for Joe Provencio's group. All of his people came back, his program managers came back and said, we're gonna set our goals even higher. We had 80%, 90% goals for customer service and response and things like that. And they went as close to 100 as they could get. So we're at 97, 98. So they set their own goals higher, which speaks a lot to the commitment of our associates. Next slide. So the things we didn't achieve were what I call pending results, because we're still working on it. It just means we didn't meet the deadlines that we had set. Obviously, an HR function has not been established yet, but we have a new job description, and hopefully we'll be able to post for that soon. The 80% of board, commission, and city council member report backs to us. It's not that we didn't achieve that we know they're getting information that they need in order to make decisions. However, we just haven't measured it. So that's not a failure, it's just non-implementation of tracking. Also, we already know we are not gonna fill 60% of our positions in 6 weeks, and not when it takes us 37 weeks right now on average. So that's going to be a goal. We didn't hit it by January 2020, but I'm hoping once we bring on a staffing specialist and we streamline, we'll do a better job of that. Same thing, the promotion process within LCU being established, we're not there yet. And again, that's going to be one of the primary goals of our staffing specialist, to help us work on that promotion process and what I call a career development plan for each of our associates. Next slide. Also, I'm going back to the training program, where we can say 95% of training support for certifications provided. I want to make this a clarification. We provide the training required for all our associates. We get them certified where they need to be certified, and we provide the opportunities necessary for them to do their jobs. The problem is we're not tracking it well. However, Ramiro in gas and Jeff in business services, they've done a great job in developing our learning management system. So we can start using that tool to track what training we're providing, and then put us on a good calendar of what's needed for each associate. This, by December 2020, 80% developed areas. This was the weird gas goal that we eliminated with the one I spoke about previously, where we're aligning our gas service area with existing roadways, rather than saying 80% of areas in the Northeast area will have services available. It was just an odd goal, and it didn't align as well with Elevate as we'd like it to. And then of course, we don't have our succession plan at all levels within the department. When Dr. Garcia and I met with all the deputy directors for annual evaluations, every one of them, we did focus on having those succession plans in place. And again, once we have a staffing specialist, we'll be able to coordinate and track those efforts and our success toward that effort in the future.
Elia,
Yes, sir.
this is Commissioner Sorg.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on these natural gas service area. I don't remember what the climate action plan has in it. Is this consistent with our climate action plan to have those areas increased?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sword, there's not a reference to the development of those areas or expansion of those areas with natural gas. The climate action plan sets a strategy of conversion from natural gas to electricity. And so it's one of the strategies focuses on conversion. Of course, the climate action plan, it still hasn't been finalized. We sent in all our edits. There were some technical corrections and errors that were on it that we sent into our sustainability officer. So we haven't seen the final, but the expansion part is not addressed. It's the energy related to emissions. And so even with Elevate Las Cruces, the way this defines here, this pending result, we just deleted it because it really doesn't align with the efforts and the strategies that are being seen in Elevate or even with sustainability.
Okay, well, thank you. Request that we revisit that at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
A complete understanding. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
That's actually the end. So if you have any other questions or concerns or anything we need to address, what I do want to ask the board is how would you like to hear this? I know this is the first time we've done a peak summary for you. Is this something you want to see once a year, every quarter, maybe every 6 months? What would the board like? And just as Commissioner Sword mentioned, these are things we need to revisit and discuss in depth and even more. So, and if we can include it in a work session, or I really just want to reach out and see what you all want in order for us to stay on the right path.
Okay. Other members of the board, do you want to chime in now, or do you want to think about it for a while and bring it up again during general discussion?
This is Carmichael. My preference would be at least once a year, if we could ever get back to some semblance of normalcy and have work sessions again, would be able to have a work session on it, like I said, maybe once a year, to allow us to really delve into the results and the modifications that may be required. Other than that, however the rest of the board wants to see periodic reporting, but once a year, I would recommend we shoot for a work session.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes,
And Mr. Chairman, this is Gil Sorg. I agree with Mr. Carmichael.
Okay, thank you. And now
Commissioner Johnson, I agree too. Once a year is often enough, but we ought to have a work session where there's more time to discuss things in detail.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a great suggestion. What I'll do is put it on my calendar. So probably after December, when we look at our strategic results again for the calendar year, we can come back and actually have a real work session before submitting those through the performance manager at the city. And so if we talk about it a little bit more in depth prior to any edits, we can definitely do that early in the calendar year.
Thank you. I have one addition. My compatriots may not thank me for this, but as you are reviewing next time, look at whether any of the training can or should be appropriately shared with board members.
Mr. Chairman, that's a great idea, and I'll make note of that now. So as if we ever get to offer live training again, or as we modify our system, we'll definitely make sure you're in the loop when those come up. That's a really good point. I know we are going to schedule with Dr. Blank and Dr. Gigax because we still need to have that rate setting training with our board members as well as our new city councilors, or even old city councilors if they would like a refresher, but we'll absolutely make note of that.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Okay, Commissioner Archuleta. Commissioner Archuleta, did you have your hand up? Or?
Could
I
you hear
think
me?
he's on mute. There he is.
Go.
I was going to say that when we do this annual review, that it ought to be done in conjunction with the review of the budget for the next fiscal year, so that we're dealing with policy issues at the same time that we're dealing with the financial plan.
Very good. Very good. Anything else? Okay, then now go ahead.
Alma?
Yes, I'm here. Commissioner Little, Chair Little, and Commissioners Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager for Utilities. I'm here to present the 2019 customer survey results. And as in past years, we actually worked with NMSU Chi Epsilon Honor Society engineer students. This was pre-COVID. This occurred in October of 2019. And they conducted face-to-face survey events at 4 locations, which are listed below, at the Brannigan Library, the Farmers Market, and Save Mart, and Toucan Market. And as in past years, we offered the survey in both Spanish and in English. It contained 12 questions. As I mentioned, we did face-to-face. We also included the survey in the customer utility bills and an option for online using SurveyMonkey. We have a strategic business goal of 3% customer surveys completed, which we met the goal. There was a total of 48,000, a little over 48,000 surveys sent out, and about 1,600 responses, which equals 3%. Most of the answers showed that our customers are knowledgeable about most of our services, and 85% of our customers have lived in Las Cruces more than 5 years, with 12% living here 1 to 5%, and then 4% being new residents of less than a year. Based on the 2018 customer survey results, we decided to incorporate some of the strategic business plan goals, and the ones we identified to include in the survey were the following. And the first one being, beginning in 2020, 85% annual survey respondents will report they know who to call or what to do when they smell natural gas. We exceeded that goal because 97% of our customers know that they need to call. They need to remove themselves from the home and then call our 24/7 dispatch number. Beginning in 2020, 85% annual survey respondents will report they know what materials they should or should not put down their drain to flush. We exceeded that goal by achieving 92%. However, like Delilah mentioned earlier, we do need to do a little bit of additional outreach, because post-COVID or during COVID, we saw an uptick in disinfectant wipes being flushed down the toilet, which was clogging up a lot of our lift stations. So we'll continue to monitor that result. 25% customer respondents who report they are confident or very confident that wastewater is safely recycled into the environment. We exceeded that goal by achieving 82%. What's next is that we will review and identify our strategic business plan line of business goals that can be included in this upcoming survey. We'll also need to refocus and identify the best methods to deliver our surveys, because due to the COVID situation, we're not going to offer face-to-face surveys at farmers market or at stores. So we've talked a little about utilizing the Everbridge system, which is an electronic notification, and we will continue to send it out online and in the utility bills. And we hope that we can meet the 3% goal next year. We do want to continue to focus on areas that we found as the results that customers are still a little unclear about. 12% still believe that electricity is part of the utility services. 32% are confident or unsure that LCU produces safe drinking water. 40% do not know they need to use clear trash bags for the green grappler in order to pick up their green waste. 35% believe that we, the utilities, still receive tax dollars to fund our operations. So we will continue to work with our public relations consultant to make sure that we are providing additional outreach to ensure that our customers are, well informed. In your packet, you will have the full results of the survey, both in English and in Spanish, just to see all of the different answers that you may have. At this point, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Archuleta.
I have a comment. Alma, one of the questions that you might want to consider the next time you do the survey is with regard to customer value. In other words, asking a question in terms of whether or not customers believe that they receive good value for the services that they are provided. You could break it down by each of the 4 utilities to kind of see how they feel about water, how they feel about wastewater, solid waste, and gas. But there needs to be, this could be an annual type of question. Some of the questions ought to be annual questions so you can develop trends and see what's happening with regard to trends. Are things improving, or are they, are they not improving? But I think we need to have something with regard to the value of services received.
Agreed. Thank you. Other comments?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chair Archuleta. I have taken that note down, and I will incorporate it into next year's survey.
Okay. My only contribution would be, as we report the results, it would be well to look at the trends in some of these answers as well. In other words, our 35% think we're tax funded. How does that compare with last year and the year before? Now, Commissioner Sorg.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
Great. I'll incorporate some graphs next year to show the trend on how we're doing on these results. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that in order to save time, I just give you a thumbs up when I agree with you.
Okay. Good enough. Thanks. Okay, let's go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, not much to report this month on water litigation. Alma, can you go to the next slide, please? In Texville, New Mexico, as we mentioned to you before, that Dr. Wilson was going to be a witness. We were able to secure access to have one of our experts be a witness in the case. And Dr. Wilson was deposed by Texas, and there were some questions from the US as well. I believe Mr. Stein will be ready to report to the board probably next month, either September or October, as to what else is happening, and then brief you on some of the subject matters that were dealt with in the deposition. I believe that has to be done in probably in closed session. And then no other developments at this point in terms of scheduling. I think the trial is still scheduled for March of 21, and it's likely that it's going to take about a year, on and off about a year, the whole trial. So next. Finally, our consent decree was officially entering court July 30th, 2020. When I briefed you on the settlement conditions, we were supposed to do some payments to EPA for a small portion of the past costs. That was done already. And we're supposed to get approximately $6.3 million from the National Guard to help pay for future cleanup costs. We've provided the account and the wire transfer instructions so that they can pay that to the Joint Superfund project, so that those funds would go to the Griggs Walnut Fund. So this is a great milestone. It's a personal milestone because I've been dealing with this matter since 1993 when we first discovered the contamination in one of the wells. So finally, we brought the feds to the table, and we got this settled up. There's still remaining a couple of things on the private side of the parties, and I had briefed you before that the scheduled court mediation was initially going to be earlier, but there were several dates. They ended up choosing the August 20th. Interim City Manager Maestas and Ms. Whitmer will be attending the mediation on August 20th. I'm sure that you can be briefed later on again in closed session as to what the outcome was, and Mr. Cabello can brief you on that again on closed session, depending on the outcome. Next. The new Griggs Walnut West Griggs property issue, I briefed you on that. This utility submitted on behalf of the city. A voluntary remediation plan needs to be reviewed by NMED. I understand that they have 30 days to review, and I believe there's going to be a conference call scheduled and some clarifications before the state can respond back. So staff will be briefing you every month on the outcome of this one property that did show some levels of contamination dating back to the 2002 testing. With that, Mr. Chairman, again, I recommend that we bring Jay Stein either at the September, October meeting and potentially in a closed session so he can give you a little more detail on the outcome of the deposition of Dr. Wilson. I read the deposition, but I can't comment publicly on that. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. If you would go ahead and ask Mr. Stein to schedule a visit with us at his earliest appropriate opportunity.
Will do, Mr. Chairman.
And this will still be by Zoom, but I guess we'll just no YouTube, right?
Yeah, it would be separate, but through the same system, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I think we have projects next, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any questions.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, next.
Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners, Carl Clark here, Deputy Director of Environmental and Technical Support, here to give you the August 2020 projects update. The three projects I have for you is the pre-1965 Foothills landfill excavation, the Jacob Hands wastewater treatment facility improvements, and the water production shop restroom addition. Next slide, please. The pre-65 Foothills landfill excavation, as you all are aware, we have we have 4 contracts included in this project. They're all separate contracts run by us and by my staff. You can see the contractors there. The total combined contract cost is approximately $1 million. Contract time is 104 work days. They started this back on March 18th with an estimated construction completion date now of February 26th, which is an extension from the original end date that we had. The percent complete is 40% in regards to construction, 51% in regards to payments. That is more likely because of the slower process with the flip screen and the rental of the equipment that we're using out there in the field. We began this, like I said, back in March. The amount of waste that we've already hauled is approximately 23,412 tons of material that's been removed. The next slide, please. That contract did get pushed out further, and I discussed this last month in regards to why the flip screen is a slower process for us. When we determined we were hauling more dirt than actual waste, we had to step back, relook at our process and see how we could become more efficient. And with NMED's approval of the flip screen, we moved to that. It did slow down our process, but it did make the removal of waste more efficient and the disposal of that waste when it crosses the scales over at South Central Solid Waste. I told you before, 90% of that weight was all sand, and now we flipped the scale around, and 90% of that is actual waste material with less sand involved in that. So, any questions in regards to this contract? You all will be seeing a resolution further on today because of this time extension in regards to the equipment that we're leasing for this project. So that contract has to be extended. We're evaluating the other 3 contracts to see what needs to be extended and negotiating with the contractors and consultants on that. And you should see something coming forward if it fits into your approval process. Next slide, please. Oh, any questions? I hope there was none. I'm moving a little fast.
I didn't see any.
Okay. The next project is the Jacob Hands wastewater treatment facility site improvements. As you're all aware, we had the 5 buildings that were constructed on another project, and 2 of them were installed over at the Jacob Hands. Those buildings were installed in the open area, and so we needed a parking lot there because of the large amount of clay that's in that area. Every time it would rain, it would turn into a mud bog, so we didn't want to put the heavy equipment through that. So this project is addressing that issue. It's addressing the drainage and putting on an asphalt top, and then also fencing in the area so that way we can kind of separate the treatment plant operations from the collection system operations. And that's what this does. The contractor for this was A Mountain Professional. Contract cost was $200,000 with 60 working days. They started this in May 4th, and it was completed July 29th. They say the project is 100% complete. Put a couple of photos in there that show you the new fence that separates the plant and collection, kind of, sort of. They're still all in the same plant footprint, but it kind of isolates the 2 groups. Then the crushed landscaping rock that was installed as well out there to help mitigate dust issues and the mud issues created when it rains a lot. And there were some ponds installed as well, 3 ponds. The one thing it didn't address that I told the board that I would be addressing is the landscaping. So there was not enough budget when we asked for a change with the contractor. His price was rather high, and so we opted to go a different direction. And we will be doing most of that landscaping work along with Rhonda Diaz, who's going to be recommending plants and landscaping items. And then we would be working the irrigation system to extend it further into the existing trees we have and to provide irrigation to some of the plants that we're going to be installing as part of this. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Next one. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the water production shop restroom addition. I included a map here so I could show you the footprint of the area that we're on right now. You can see the main building on the lower left of the map. The water production shop E building is up there on the north end of the property, northeast side. Basically, we used to house a lot of chemical in there. We still do house chemical in there, However, staff shows up there, they get loaded up there, and we found a need that we needed a restroom in that location. Otherwise, they'd have to come all the way back over here to the main building to come and use the facilities. And so this makes it a little bit more convenient in that area, and they can spend more of their time there doing their business. So next slide. So the contractor for this project is Sandoval Construction. Due to the dollar amount, we were able to get 2 proposals. We actually had we received a proposal from FSC and one from Sandoval, and Sandoval was a little bidder on this project. Contract time is 45 working days. We started this July 13th with an estimated completion date of September 15th. When we went into this project, we didn't realize that CID was really affected by the COVID and that they're limited on staff. So this has caused a delay in this project. Right now we're about 5% complete in regards to construction. I put a couple of photos here on the upper right, and you can see that the sewer mains are installed and they're not covered. We've asked for inspection from CID and they have yet to show. So we're still requesting for them to come and show up, but we're not getting that request answered yet. We'll continue pursuing that so we can get this facility completed. You can see the summary of the project. It's a 6.5 by 8 foot restroom facility. It's ADA compliant. And basically the work consists of installing the bathroom enclosure itself and then the sewer line. So the sewer service is completed and needs to be inspected. And then the other items can move forward once we can see that CID is on board with us again to do their inspection as required. Any questions in regards to this project? That's all I have for you this month.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
On to the next item, board resolution.
Resolutions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Ms. Lawrence?
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Robin Lawrence, Deputy Director for Solid Waste. This resolution is seeking the first.
wait. I have to read them.
Yes, sir.
And then get 2 people to agree to consider them.
I apologize.
It's all right. First is Resolution 18-19-045A, a resolution authorizing year 1 of a 3 one-year renewal service agreement for routeware, routing software, and hardware in the amount not to exceed $101,000. A motion to approve?
So move.
I'll second it.
Thank you. That was Commissioner Johnson and then Commissioner Sword. Discussion.
Okay, I'll start over. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Robin Lawrence, Deputy Director for Solid Waste. This resolution is seeking the first of 3 one-year renewals for routeware software support and new installations. And as you recall, the board approved the original resolution last year that authorized us to utilize routeware to automate our solid waste. We installed tablets on our route trucks that has each driver's route loaded onto it. And then the program automatically detects when a customer is serviced, and it documents when it is not with photos and comments. And then the program also has back office software that allows us to provide additional support services to customers and to route drivers. Next slide, please. So the benefits we have realized over the past year include having the ability to provide customers with real-time information. So if they call and want to know why we haven't serviced their container, office staff can look in the system to see if perhaps we have not been there yet, or if there was an issue with their container. We have identified multiple properties that were only paying for 1 container, but have had 2 or 3. And in the past year, we've removed over 700 additional containers that we estimate approximately 75% of those were due to customers having containers that they were not paying for. So past practice was also, if we had breakdowns, multiple drivers might have been working to help cover that route. Now we have the ability to electronically send a helper out to specific drivers, capturing all relevant data and being more efficient without having multiple drivers in the same area. This decreases the number of missed pickups while saving time and realizing other operational expenses. Container issues are easily documented. It may have been blocked by a car or over-serviced. So the pictures and comments provide real-time information that we can advise customers on. And this gives us the ability to not only educate our customers on what the issue was, but also allows us to charge a fee to go back and pick up the container, helping cover operational expenses. Lastly, this program has helped us to identify concentrated areas of growth that support the need to reroute our routes to better balance the anticipated growth in the community. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, ready?
Yes, I do have one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, and what reminded me, this is something that happened very recently to me. When the container was put back down after being emptied, the wheels broke off. Is there any way your system allows that to be noted at the time when the container has been damaged?
Yes, sir. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, this past year we've spent time, of course, trying to learn the system, what we need to do. There is an area that we're working on standard operating procedures, because there is an area that allows the driver to put a comment in the system. And so we're working on an SOP where they can put that comment in the system, and then who's going to be looking at those comments to get somebody out to make those repairs. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, the container was replaced very timely, so everything worked. But I did have to call it in.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes, it's Commissioner Hardy. I
Go
believe you, Robin, I believe you gave us a demonstration of that on that last tour. Is this the same program we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that looks like a very impressive piece of equipment in addition. I was very impressed with that.
It's helped us significantly.
Okay, other comments or questions? Seeing none, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta. We need to unmute everybody so they can vote. Commissioner Archuleta? He's still muted. We're working on it.
Perhaps you can call some other commissioners.
Well, I think it's a universal problem.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
Okay, now Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the chair, yes. Thank you. The next resolution is Resolution 18-19-056B, a resolution approving Amendment Number 2 to Service Agreement 18-19-056 between the City of Las Cruces Gas Utility and C&M Regulatory Pipeline Consultants, LLC of Tempe, Arizona, to perform annual consulting services. This is the last renewal of the 2 additional one-year terms for a total contract amount not to exceed $159,760.94.
Move to approve?
Thank you. That's Sorg. And a second?
Commissioner Hardy, I second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Lucio Garcia, Deputy Director for Gas Utilities. Resolution 18-19-056B is the last renewal of the 2 additional one-year terms for the service agreement between the City of Las Cruces Gas Utility and C&M Regulatory Pipeline Consultants of Tempe. The annual cost is $147,500 plus New Mexico gross receipts tax of $12,260.94. Total cost being $159,760.94 total. The actual cost will be based on an hourly rate approved by the Utility Board in 2019 in accordance with Resolution 18-19-056A. Now, the consulting services to be provided will be a comprehensive gas system operational audit, as well as distribution and transmission integrity program update. Both of these are regulatory requirements and fall in that category. Briefly, if you recall, we had C&M Regulatory Pipeline Consultants, LLC, perform an audit the fall of 2017, at which time there were 33 findings. All findings were addressed either procedurally, physically, or administratively with an SOP. Now, due to the COVID restrictions, we were not able to have these services provided during FY20 towards the end of the year. So for fiscal year 21, we will proceed to accomplish these tasks either via electronic or internet communication initially, with limited site visits as allowed by our current continuity of operations plans. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions? Seeing none. Ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Sword.
Yes.
And the chair, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is Resolution 19-20-049A, a resolution approving an assignment of the Utilities Public Relations Professional Services Price Agreement with Suzanne Michaels Communications to McClure Publications for the remainder of the initial one-year term, effective August 16th, 2020 through February 28th, 2021. Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, seconds. Discussion.
Mr. Commissioner Hardy, I worked with Casey McClure on a recent article she did and was very impressed. I think she's quite talented with this, and I think it's a very wise choice.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager for the Utilities Department. As I mentioned in the July board meeting, Ms. Suzanne Michaels announced her retirement effective August 15, 2020. Cassie McClure has worked with Suzanne Michaels Communication for 3 years and is local to Las Cruces, which is very critical to continue the level of service currently provided by Suzanne Michaels Communication, having a local consultant that is only a phone call away. With the city manager and assistant city manager's concurrence, as well as purchasing, they agree with staff to assign the remaining one-year contract from Suzanne Michaels Communication to McClure Publications, which will guarantee a local public consultant is available to utility staff while still working with the second vendor that the board assigned back in February of 2020. The second vendor is based in Albuquerque. In February of 2020, the board awarded Suzanne Michaels Communication $75,000 of which, as of the July billings that she has submitted, has expended approximately $30,000, leaving approximately $45,000 to get us through February 2020. This resolution 1920-049A is seeking board approval to assign the remaining year one budget allocation from Suzanne Michaels Communication to McClure Publications to meet out the first year contract. And I stand for any questions.
Okay, any other additional comments or questions?
I've got one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I assume that, this is fairly unusual. That this is a fairly unusual thing to do, that you've gone to with that it's legal to do it this way. Since you're shifting a contract from one vendor to another vendor who wasn't part of the original solicitation.
There is a clause within the contract, which is item 16, sorry, Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager, Chair, and Commissioner Johnson, that reads, contractor shall perform all services under this assignment and shall not assign any interest of this agreement or transfer any interest in the same or assign any claims for money due to this assignment without prior written consent of the city. And therefore, that is why we are bringing this assignment contract to the board to get their approval, to just finish out the year one. We agree as city staff, all the way up to the city manager, that the contract would not be reassigned for years 1 through 4. We would do an additional bidding out for those services to hire a local vendor through the procurement process. But to get us through the first year of this contract, we are requesting that section 16 of the assignment be implemented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Just a second. First, Dr. Garcia.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have 3 things to say. Number 1, yes, it is unusual. Number 2, the contract provides for that, so it is legal. And number 3, it has been done before with our gas contract attorneys and way back with Stein and Brockman. It used to be Simpson Stein, and we assigned to Stein and Brockman. So it has been done, but it's pursuant to provisions of assignment within a contract. Thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. Cabello.
Chairman and board, Robert Cabello from legal. I want to concur with Dr. Garcia and with Alma Ruiz. One of the reasons it's legal under the contract, but even the process of taking it to a bid would actually exhaust the time, literally the remainder of the year, but before it actually were to get awarded. And so that's another reason why assignment is the best choice in this instance.
Okay, thank you. Now, Commissioner Carmichael.
I just wanted to mention, I saw in the write-up that in going back out for bids and whatever we're going to do, whatever's going to be done after February of next year, that there was also the consideration perhaps bringing it back in-house. I don't know how much we'd have to say about that, but I guess my input is that we've been getting some awfully good PR the last several years, and the last thing we want to do is find ourselves in a subordinated position in getting those services again. So that's just a comment for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted for the record to reiterate somewhat of what I'm sorry, this is Delilah Walsh, Assistant Director. And again, just for the record, that the contract assignment was disclosed during the bidding process. Therefore, we are fully compliant with procurement rules.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing else from board members, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta. I'm still muted. Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and now Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
And the chair, yes. Thank you all. Okay, the next resolution is Resolution 1920-070A, a resolution approving change order number 2 in the amount of $289,733.77 for project number 1920-070, pre-1965 Foothills landfill equipment, to provide additional time and funding to Wagner Cat of El Paso, Texas, for a new total award amount of $538,457.71. Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Sorg, and a second?
Commissioner Hardy, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. If we can move on to the next slide. This is Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. This is the project we talked about earlier, the pre-65 landfill cleanup or waste excavation removal. The photos here are the 4 pieces of equipment that we have leased for this project. We have an end date on that lease, and we had a cap dollar amount on that lease. Since we're having to extend the project due to the screening process, we have to extend the lease agreement and put additional money towards the equipment rental. This additional money comes from the savings on the screening side. So there's budget there, and we just need to extend the contract so we can continue with our cleanup efforts. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson?
Trying to find the unmute button here. Yeah, two things. We're doubling the cost, more than doubling the cost on this, and we're extending it for more than 6 months. But we're saving them by 90% of the burying sand again. So it seems to make sense, but I was a little bit surprised both on how much longer it was taking and the fact that it increased the contract from about 250,000 to over 500,000.
Chairman, Commissioners, you're correct. The foot screen has really reduced the cost on our tipping fees. We had a high cost originally on tipping fees that ate into a large amount of our budget. And once we started screening that, the tipping fees reduced that amount of material that we were crossing the scales probably by 75, 80%. I told you 90, but it's probably more like that, 80%. So then the money we had budgeted for paying to go across the scales is now moved over to the equipment rental. So there's kind of a balance. And the project manager that's on this project, he has to look at it every month to determine the balance. And we're constantly looking at the numbers to ensure that we're being cost efficient the way we're removing trash and trying to remove the majority of the trash from that site. As you know, we already cleared up one cell, we're into the next cell, and the waste happens to change all the time. So it's hard to hit the right number every time, because you go into the next cell and it may be a bunch of concrete debris. So, but we look at the numbers monthly, and it's not just my project manager, it's the director's been involved, our accountants have been involved, and we're all looking at these numbers coming across the table to make sure we can try and complete this project as we promised. So unfortunately, we brought that flip screen in late in the game. And unfortunately, there's only one company that produces this flip screen, and they're based out of Australia. We've already moved on to a larger flip screen to try and process through the waste a little faster. We've been unable to get another flip screen since they do come in out of Australia, and there's a limited quantity of these things. So we've asked to bring another one on board, because once again, it'd be cost effective if we brought a second one on board. But the manufacturer or the vendor in this country has been unable to satisfy our request at this time. So we contemplated using a traditional shaker screen, but we feel that the traditional shaker screen wouldn't work the same. It would get clogged really quickly, and it tends to produce a lot more dirt or dust, I'm sorry. And this flip screen allows you to more or less gauge how clean you have that material. So it doesn't come out, we can get it super clean. However, we end up breaking the material down as it flips in the drum, and then it goes by the screen. So there's a certain number of turns or flips that we have to do on this to get us a material that we feel satisfied is fairly clean, but hasn't broken down further. So it's a balancing act. That's all I can really say. And we're looking at the numbers every day, and we will stop when we determine that we won't have any budget to finish out. We will back off and say this is as far as we could get with all our resources, and looking at it every day, trying to figure out the best way to do this. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Commissioner Sorg?
Yeah, this is a point of information. I've been doing these Zoom meetings now since March, multiple times a week. And not too long ago, I found a little trick that everybody on the Zoom can use. Instead of trying to fumble with your mouse to unclick your mute icon at the bottom of the screen, you can push and hold down your space bar, which I'm doing right now. And you can talk. And then when you're done talking, just let it go. Just for information purposes, if those want to do it. So I have oftentimes trying to fumble around, trying to get the mouse to click on the icon.
Thank you. Every little bit helps. Zoom is an opportunity. Commissioner Carmichael.
No, I didn't have anything. I was just experimenting with what Commissioner Sorg said.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, as Commissioner Hardy, I got to see that site during one of the tours, and it looks like there's some really valuable real estate there that the city's going to come up with. And does that make the cost of recovery here less significant?
Chairman, Commissioners, no, I think you're right. I mean, it will be valuable property. Utilities is not really part of the master planning of that area, so I'm not sure how they're going to, what the economic situation is going to be like for the city in regards to how they utilize this property. So can't really speak too much to that. All I know is they gave me a budget, and they said they needed to clean up these cells, and that's my goal, is to get them all cleaned up with the budget, the limited budget that I have to do this work. So they can make twice as much as they first evaluated, or they make half as much as they first evaluated. It just depends on how they plan to pursue this. But there's a lot of ideas out there in regards to this property, and the residents in those areas have a lot of ideas, and they're throwing them our way. And so it's all up to the planners at this point to determine how the city's going to sit economically.
Mr. Chairman?
Hey, Dr. Garcia?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the utility will be made whole in terms of the reimbursement, but it is very likely that the city government, the general fund, will make some money after investing in planning of the property, probably shaping the land to the point that it can be developed. So, but the utility will receive all of the monies that we spend back from the general fund.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorg.
That was pretty much what I was going to say. It's a different part of the city government, and those decisions are yet to be made. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ready for a vote? And we'll use Commissioner Sorg's idea about the space bar. Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Johnson.
Work for me. Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
And the chair, yes. Thank you all. The next resolution is Resolution 1920-094A, a resolution awarding a construction contract for the water service line and patch replacement, project number 1920-094A, to Ferguson Construction Company of Lovington, New Mexico, for a total contract award amount of $360,082.44. Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Sorg, and second.
Second, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Discussion.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Once again, Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. We can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So basically, this is a construction contract, and this addresses actually the previous contract. You all may recall, some of you were here, where we did service line leaks and patch replacements. This is a very similar contract. We use the similar template, but this is a little different. This is to address the leaks that are identified by our leak detection system as part of the AMI project. As you can see on the map, there's a bunch of blue dots. These are leaks in these different areas that were identified as part of the AMI system. And basically staff has vetted those. And so now we need to get out there and repair those. Unfortunately, with all the vacancies in water, they have not been able to catch up. And then it's the busiest time of the year. So we put together this contract to help catch up and get these leaks from the leak detection system addressed. So we put it out to bid. We had several bidders. You can see from the board action form resolution, and Ferguson was the low compliant bidder. So out of Lovington. So we'll move forward as quickly as we can. Once you all say yes, if you say yes to this award, then we'll get them under contract and begin addressing each and every one of these leaks. This is something that we're going to have to address on an ongoing basis as part of this energy performance contract. We have to, it forces us into fixing these leaks, so that way we can see the savings from the recoverable water off of these leaks. So we'll look at it every year and ensure that if water operations needs help, we'll put together another contract and go tackle these leaks. But if they say they can do it all, then we'll step back and let them continue their operation and fix these and repair these leaks. So like I said, once again, once these vacancies get filled in, I think they'll be able to handle this ongoing effort. So.
Okay. Discussion, questions? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sorg.
Yeah, Commissioner Sorg. I'm so glad to see we're working and moving forward on this. Boy, it seems like these leaks are popping up constantly all the time. And of course, we hear about it, especially city councilors emailing us, say there's a leak in my neighborhood, on my street, and so on. And so I'm so glad we need to move forward on this, and I'm pleased that this is being done now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Ready for a vote? Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sword,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Resolution 1920-138, a resolution awarding a construction contract for Cruces water and gas improvements. Number 1920-138 to J29 Enterprises of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Contract award amount of $123,432.80.
Move to approve.
So
Thank you.
move. Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Sword moves, Commissioner Johnson seconds. Carl, probably you, right?
Chairman, Commissioners, yes. This is Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. This is another one of my projects. As you're all aware, it's a little different picture, but I've been bringing this project to you probably for the last two CIPs. This is part of the NMDOT I-25 University Interchange project. So early on in the project, they showed us where their alignments were going to be and what they were going to be excavating. And we took a look at our utilities in these areas, and it turned out that water, which is AC pipe and of a certain age, it's an older AC pipe, that we felt that we should not be leaving it under the brand new pavement that's going to be installed as part of the DOT project. In addition, we found that there was some gas line that, due to their alignment and their cuts, it was going to be too shallow. And so we needed to lower it in these areas. So that's what we're moving forward with in this time. So yeah, basically it's to take care of those items as part of the DOT project. This is a little different. I remember, I think you all, majority of you were here for the last Valley Drive project. And we had some real heartburn when we allowed the DOT to bid it with their projects, because we all felt that the contractor front loaded on the utility side to pay for the kind of maybe some of the costs that they seen as part of the roadway side. So we wanted to get away from that aspect in this project, because I let them know that we weren't going to accept another high bid on utilities. The last one was extremely high. So I told them, give us a window and we'll bid it out. We'll have our contractor go in there and take care of these issues. And so they did. And I used Molson Corbin, who was their consultant, to put together these contracts and coordinate this effort so we can get it out to bid. They've been watching the construction, and then they notified me that said, yes, it's time to bid it. And so we did, and here it is in front of you. This contract has a 30-day timeline for this contractor. Once you all agree to approve this resolution, we'll move forward with the finalization of the contracts, and we'll get this contractor on board with the weekly meetings that go on with the DOT, so you can start scheduling them to come in and do this work. So they'll give us a window so we can go replace this AC water line and actually replace the gas line. We're going to put new line in there in that aspect. So we did get a good price, as you can see from the dollar amount, and we want to move forward with this. Any questions?
Okay, comments or questions?
Commissioner Hardy, I have a question. Do we get any reimbursement back from the highway department for this, since this really wasn't our problem?
Chairman, Commissioner, yes, and a portion of it. So unfortunately, the only portion of it, the way the agreements work with the DOT is if it's impacting our utilities, such as we cannot have cover on it, such as in the gas line, they would consider that as a reimbursable portion. So anything on the gas side, they will reimburse us. Unfortunately, the AC water line still has some life in it, but the grade did not affect our cover on this. So they said, well, you can still keep it there. And we said, well, we don't want to leave an AC water line in place. We have a Transite master plan where we're eliminating AC water line. And we felt this was the opportunity now to remove and replace this AC water line ahead of the project and ahead of the new pavement. We didn't want to run the risk of of having a water line break underneath the new asphalt and getting egg on our face. The also on these AC water lines, which the DOT doesn't quite understand, when you start doing compaction over these AC water lines, you're gambling now. They're very brittle, and any kind of weird vibration can cause a shift, and it'll crack that pipe, and then it may not show up right away, but I guarantee you it'll show up after that asphalt is in place. So we felt it was safe to remove and replace this with some C900 line and get another 50, 60 years without having to touch that pavement. It's a huge savings to us to not have to replace that pavement either.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta. Still muted. Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
Now Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Thank you. And the chair, yes. Okay. We have resolution 2021 LCU 006, a resolution awarding a contract utilizing the Cooperative Education Services Agreement for the Las Cruces Utilities Water Production Facilities roof repairs and replacement to Commercial Roofing LLC of Albuquerque, New Mexico, for a total award amount of $113,598.30.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorg. And now a second.
Commissioner Hardy, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Carl Clark, once again, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support, bringing you this Las Cruces Water Production Facilities Roof Repairs and Replacement Project. I've brought you these projects before in the past. My group here has repaired dozens of roofs for the utility. This is another example. We continue to look at our infrastructure, especially our satellite buildings that house our wells and our booster stations and what have you. And these are some more projects that we identified. There are 5 buildings in whole or in all. And the 4 of the 5 are actually on the Jornada side. These are buildings that we received from Jornada, so they need to be addressed. I left some photos in there, and you can see that the roofs are pretty well wore out. They've met their lifespan, and we need to get in there and repair these. Please note, we do have expensive equipment inside these buildings, electrical equipment, motors and such, SCADA equipment that can be damaged by water if it comes in from the roofs and drips in the right spot. So without that equipment, we won't be able to provide the water we need to provide. So we use the CES program because it is an efficient tool for us. We can get the contractor out there, show him the work we need done. He can give us a proposal. If I went another route, such as the bid process, I would have to get a consultant on board, start drawing up all these roofs, create plans to bid on, and that's a huge cost to us, especially nowadays with the consultant prices are pretty significant. So I'd estimate this would cost us anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 from a consultant to start drafting these up and have something presentable so everybody can. These prices in the CES are all competitively bid as part of the CES program. They have a Gordian group that checks all the prices and ensures that we receive the best price. So there is a cost savings by using the CES and a time savings as well. This allows us to get into our CIP budget that we have budgeted ahead, and we don't have to worry about getting that design completed in a timely manner, which my consultants are taking a long time. They're really busy. And so it allows us to use the CIP budget the way we want to use it in an efficient and timely manner. Any questions in regards to these? Oh, and by the way, we do end up with a 20-year warranty on top of that. So.
Okay, comments or questions? Seeing none, Ready for a vote? Commissioner Archuleta,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Thank you all.
Thank you, board, for your support.
Okay, next one is Resolution 2021 LCU 008, a resolution authorizing Las Cruces Utilities staff to make revisions to the Las Cruces natural gas main extension policy schedule.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorg, second.
Carmichael said,
Okay, Commissioner Carmichael seconds. Discussion.
Chairman, Commissioners, Jose Provencio, Deputy Director of Business Services. Resolution 20-21-LCU 008 seeks your authorization to revise the language and the policies involved with gas main extensions. This policy was first put into place and approved by the board late in 2015. And over the past 5-6 years, things have changed in the gas system, not gas system, but in terms of extending gas mains in order to hook up new customers to the gas service area and to the gas network. The revisions that are enacted in this resolution streamline many of the processes and addresses some of the points that were starting to become a bit of a hurdle in terms of continuing to extend gas main services to the periphery of our distribution system. For example, recently any kind of gas main extension has encountered a lot of permit restrictions, construction restrictions that complicate the end goal to extend gas mains and ultimately gas service to our customers. These revisions address those points. It's part of the evolution of any gas main extension policy. And with this approval of these revisions, the gas section can get back and start getting gas mains into the ground and extending service to our customers. Stand by for any questions you may have.
Okay, comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So I couldn't see who that was.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Mr. Provencio, will this result in any cost savings when we do these gas lines?
Chairman, Commissioner Sorg, the initial premise, and it still continues to be the main objective, is to extend the service and consider an allowance, the standard allowance, to offset those costs to extend the service main. This will continue to be the main objective of the revised gas main extension policy. Applying the standard allowance to enable customers to fairly easily hook up their gas service to an extended main. So in terms of savings,
when you say fairly easily, are you are you saying that the cost of hookup would be less for the customer?
No. Let me address that more clearly. I'm talking about the easily in terms of extending the gas main. But the customer still has to connect and acquire a gas meter and a service line. That hasn't changed.
Okay.
This is the upfront work to get the gas main.
Yes, I see. So it's a cost savings for the utility then.
It's a policy to get and enable gas extensions on the periphery of our distribution system. The policy that we had 5 years ago was fairly straightforward, but as we evolve, things have gotten a little bit more complex in terms of construction and design and permitting. That was starting to slow down the process and make it a little bit more difficult. These revisions address those points so that we continue in a timely manner to get gas mains extended out to our customers.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I noticed we don't have anything of what we just heard on paper here in the discussion, and I just wonder, do we need to have that for the permanent record? Because right now, we don't have anything that we heard that discusses what's going on. And quite frankly, in reading all of that, I was lost.
It,
Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, are you talking like a PowerPoint summary? Is that what you're addressing?
Yes, the PowerPoint there, that all it says is discussion, but you gave us some more information that it helped to understand a little better why we were doing this. But we don't have anything in our PowerPoint record.
Chairman Commissioner Johnson, I mean, the crux of the changes and the revisions that we're requesting can be, I know it's a little bit busy. It's in the tariff and the red line version, and you can see the transition that we're adding and deleting from the tariff itself that defines a policy. That in itself provides a transition or the revisions that we're addressing to smoothly enable gas main extensions as we had started 5 years ago.
Right, I agree. It says what we're doing. What I didn't see, and I had trouble finding a way to express it, was why we were doing it. And you gave us why in your discussion just now.
My discussion, Chairman and Commissioner Johnson, the areas that are new additions in the policy, which is the major red text in the second page defines some of the reasons and the rationale. The main challenges and hurdles we've encountered with this policy have been permitting costs and construction requirements and restrictions in property, the way properties are developed. So what was limiting some of the goals or objectives to extend gas main construction was some of those nuances that had to be better defined. And that's in that second page where I point out such things as design constraints, permitting constraints, construction restrictions that made things a little bit more difficult to enable the utility to extend gas mains into out into our outlying areas.
Well, if everybody else feels comfortable with it, I'll accept it.
Okay, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. Let me summarize this. This policy is a policy cleanup that takes us from 2015 to 2020 so that the utility can better serve our customers, streamline the processes. So if we're going to try to do that, it has to be in the policy. So we don't want the policy to tramp or get in our way of our gas utility responding quickly to our customers. So in summary, the policy is cleanup. If you read the red line with the new changes, it's just language changes and process changes that allow us to do better business. That's my summary.
And that makes perfect sense. I agree.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I'll add is, of course, that all of this conversation will be reflected in the minutes. And so it will be in the record.
Okay, I forgot about the minutes. You're quite correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
And the chair, yes. Thank you. Now, the next one is Resolution 2021 LCU 009, a resolution to approve the solid waste rate tariffs pursuant to City Council Resolution number 20-126, approving the full cost option for the Las Cruces Utilities solid waste rates. A motion to approve.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Commissioner Johnson, then Sorg. Discussion.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Dominic Rodriguez. I'm the Rate and Economic Analysis Manager. If you could go to there, thank you. This resolution is for the approval of the solid waste tariffs. The revenue requirement resulted with a 1.34 million increase needed by the solid waste utility. The Utilities Board approved the recommendation to City Council on January 9th, 2020. It was presented to Council during a work session on February 24th, 2020, and Council approved the full cost option on July 20th, 2020. This resolution seeks approval of the solid waste utility tariff schedules and rate charges for each class of service. This approval would make the rates effective September 1, 2020. If you can go to the next slide, please. This graph was shown in previous PowerPoint presentations. This is the expected residential bill impacts of the $2 increase for the standard 96-gallon container, as well as the compact saver service 64-gallon container. Next slide. Thank you. And this shows the standard residential rate comparison to those in our surrounding areas of what our current rate is for the 96-gallon container and then what it is going to. And I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? This is the end result. Seeing none, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta. Couldn't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
And the chair, yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now the next resolution, Resolution 2021 LCU 010. A resolution approving the natural supply and service agreement between the Board of Commissioners for the City of Las Cruces Utilities on behalf of the City of Las Cruces and New Mexico State University.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorg, and second.
So move or approve, second, whatever.
Commissioner Johnson. Discussion.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Mario Puentes, Gas Business Analyst. So the purpose of this resolution is we are seeking approval by the board to approval of the natural gas sales and service agreement between the City of Las Cruces and New Mexico State University. So I'll give you a brief overview first, and then I will stand for questions. The City of Las Cruces has provided natural gas service to NMSU for over 50 years. And prior to 1996, the gas was used primarily for steam generation and for space heating purposes. Then in the latter part of 1996, the university installed a natural gas driven turbine as part of a cogeneration system at the university's central plant. This increased the gas used by the university significantly. And in order to serve this load, the city installed a 4-inch high pressure gas line in order to meet the required pressures. Currently, we're committed to deliver no less than 190 pounds per square inch, and I believe it is capped at 230 pounds per square inch. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, back up one slide. I was looking at a different screen over here. My bad. So the turbine generates approximately 60% of the university's electricity demand during the cooler months and about 40% in the hotter months. NMSU is the single largest consumer of natural gas on the LCU natural gas system. And in the past 3 years, NMSU has made up about 18% of the total gas used from the LCU natural gas system. Next slide, please. Some of the key agreement provisions. The primary term begins on September 1st, 2020 and continues through August 31st of 2023. And unless the contract is renewed or terminated, it will continue on a month-to-month basis beginning on September 1st of 2023. The city has and will continue to provide 100% of the natural gas daily requirements of the university. The cost of service rates are, they're embedded, the contract rates, I beg your pardon. So the cost of service rates are governed by the LCU board approved tariff rates, whereas the commodity price is a market-based published monthly indexed, and it's indexed at the San Juan Basin. And in addition to that commodity price, it also we will also charge transportation and fuel charges as assessed by El Paso Natural Gas Company. The university will continue to have the option to lock in its commodity price. It will utilize the city as the conduit to Shell, and so whatever tools are available, if it fits NMSU's business needs, then it will do so. Next slide, please. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to show you this chart to kind of depict the relationship between NMSU and the entire LCU system. One of the things that stands out, at least for me, is the load profile of the university as depicted by the red line. As you can see, it is a very steady level. You know, it probably goes maybe in July, I think it was like 43,000 decatherms, and it peaked in January of 2020 at about 70,000. But other than that, you know, it's, you know, there's not much fluctuation. So it is an attractive load for not only because of the magnitude of it, but it is easy to predict and fairly easy from my office to manage that load. And then the other two lines are the blue line is the LCU system without the university's volume, and then the green line is the LCU system with the university's volume. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
answer questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. You sorted.
Yeah, I'm really curious. How does New Mexico State University heat their buildings if they don't increase the amount of gas used in the wintertime?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sorg, my layman's understanding is that it is they have a network of steam pipes, and so the boilers there at the central plant, you know, generate create the steam, and then that steam is piped through the network of pipes, and then they goes into each building, and there's some kind of heat exchanger in there, and yeah, that's my understanding of how that works.
So that's from their cogeneration then.
Well, the waste heat from the turbine is part of that, but they also use natural gas directly to the boilers. So that I believe they have 3 boilers. 2 of them are gas fired, and then the other one uses the heat from the turbine itself.
Okay, thank you. I see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Archuleta.
Yeah, I have a question about the tariffs. do the tariffs that we charge include a peak demand component? Because they peak, they're a big peaker, obviously, in the wintertime. So is there a peak demand component in the tariff that we charge?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Archuleta, there is not. The way that we handle that is through the contract, so the contract includes the Exhibit A, which tells you what we are committing to deliver to them on a maximum on a daily basis. And if they exceed on the top or on the bottom by more than 10%, then if the city incurs additional charges because of that volatility, then we will just pass it on to them. So it is not in the tariff, but it is in the contract.
Yeah, I just think the next time the tariffs are negotiated, that ought to be taken into consideration.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Archula, and it's in the contract. If they fluctuate more than 10% from what the schedule Exhibit A has, then if we incur additional charges, we will pass them through.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Commissioner Hardy.
Go ahead.
I'm curious about how much thought may have been given to the fact that with this virus, they may not be opening the place up as much, and they may not have to do all the heating and everything that they've done before. I presume maybe some thought is given into that. I noticed in the contract there at least was a charge for minimum usage, something like if they drop below 50%.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hardy, you're right. That's part of the what I was addressing there with Commissioner Archuleta, that there are some provisions in the contract that where they are committed to at least 50% of the MDQ. They can drop below that or to that point, but for no more than, I believe it's a few days. In my discussions with NMSU, they did consider the COVID situation. And so there is a slight adjustment to the volume that they provided compared to what we had prior to that. So they did take that into consideration. And it also makes for the other, I guess the other result of those discussions is that we are only going out for 3 years so that they can kind of test the waters in the meantime until this thing gets cleared up. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? Seeing nothing, ready for a vote. Commissioner Archuleta,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sore,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Okay, that concludes the resolutions. Next item of business is old business.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like Ms. Whitmer to discuss some plans to move forward with the water action plan. We've been waiting since April, and we thought we were going to have an in-person meeting, but there doesn't seem to be a change. So I'll let her address it, but you may want to consider moving forward with that. So Adrian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Adrian Whitmer, Deputy Director for Water. As Dr. Garcia discussed, back in April, we had planned to present an update on the 10-year water action plan. We did feel in person in a work session would be most appropriate, but at this point, I feel like we're just going to go ahead and present next month, even if it's remote, so that you can review what we have so far, and then you can provide us input. And then, of course, as we move forward, then we'll obviously have additional ones, but we just need to get you something so that you know we're doing things. We're going to want your input after you hear about it, read them, and then digest them. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Would you then contemplate a Zoom-based work session or a draft report or both or what?
Well, we will do, much like this, if we're not going to be in person, we'll do the exact same thing with the work session, and Shoemaker and Associates, they'll go ahead and present, and they will have a PowerPoint that you will be able to take a look at. And we can also give you what work they have accomplished so far after they've presented, so that you have time to think about it, digest it, and then provide input as we move forward.
Okay, great. Board, are you all available for a work session before the September board meeting?
Probably.
Okay, how much time does Dr. Shoemaker need?
Well, in discussions with Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, in discussions with Shoemaker and Associates, we felt that an hour and a half should be adequate.
Okay, then let's please schedule that, calendar that for us, and provide us with their material as early as practicable.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we will do that. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Any other old business?
Mr. Chair, Delilah Walsh, Assistant Utilities Director.
Go ahead.
I do want to report that the solid waste impact fee review has been postponed at City Council. We won't be presenting in August. We'll be presenting September 14th during that council meeting. I do want to just remind you that our board has the authority to take the review and make recommendations for the impact fees and even implementation. The component, however, that involves City Council is the allocation of those fees. So what is split between the ratepayers and the developer. So that's the portion that will have to be discussed by council. And I just wanted to give you a heads up to let you know that we won't go in August, we'll be in September.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Chairman, Commissioners, Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. They wanted me to let you all know the next portion of the energy performance contracting with JCI is on its way. We're signing the notice to proceed. We should have a kickoff meeting probably the next week or two, and let you know that the wastewater plant is going to be addressed on this next energy performance contract, and we're moving forward on that, and we'll see some improvements out there.
All right, thank you. Any other old business?
Not from staff, Mr. Chairman.
New business?
Mr. Chairman, as you well know, I will be leaving you in the next 2 to 3 weeks. You also the memorandum, I'll be retiring. I have to disagree with Ms. Walsh. She said we're not doing a good job in succession planning yet, but I think I've done my job. She's ready to take over, and hopefully she'll apply for the permanent job and move forward. So she's really ready to go to run the utility, and I'll see you next time we can all get together. So with that, thanks to the board for a lot of good input. We have the best board that there is. The knowledge base of this board is amazing. So staff really appreciates your input and your feedback. So with that, thank you very much.
And thank you. Other new business?
Nothing from staff, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, board's general discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Sword.
a couple of things I've got. First of all, I noticed Mr. Stein has joined us. I was wondering if he had something he needed to say.
Mr. Chairman, I did not ask Mr. Stein to join in, so we're trying to clarify why he joined in.
All right, that's all right. Secondly, then, I want to wish Dr. Garcia the best in his retirement, well-deserved. And with his work on the utilities has been awesome for all 30 years, right?
She's disabled it there.
And so, yeah, I wish him the best. And You bet.
Okay, thank you. Other board general discussion. Okay, I have something, and for my contribution, I'm going to ask Dr. Garcia to come and join me here in the boardroom.
I'll be there in a minute or two, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have a proclamation to read, and it's a pleasure to read it because it's well-deserved, and at the same time, it's kind of a painful process. Have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a proclamation in honor of Dr. Jorge A. Garcia's service to the Las Cruces Utilities, City of Las Cruces, and our citizens. Whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, was a research engineer for the International Irrigation Center at Utah State University, 1984 to 1989, and provided training and technical assistance in irrigation engineering in the Southwest, El Salvador, Morocco, and Brazil. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, graduated from Utah State University, earning a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural and Irrigation Engineering in 1981, a Master of Science in Civil Engineering in 1983, and a doctorate in civil engineering in 1989. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, is a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Mexico and state of Colorado, and is a certified government performance manager. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, has published several conference papers and is a contributing author in Hydraulics of Wells, ASCE Manuals and Reports on Engineering Practice number 127. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, started with the Las Cruces Utilities Department in November 1989 as a design engineer, followed as chief engineer, and in 2001 was promoted to utilities director. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, was instrumental in establishing the Board of Commissioners of Las Cruces Utilities, utility rate setting processes, Griggs Walnut Water Treatment Facility, acquisition of Jornada Water Company and associated water rights, advanced metering infrastructure performance contract, phase 1, and wastewater energy performance contract, phase 2. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, has been extensively involved in the Texas v. New Mexico and Colorado water lawsuit, as well as in the consent decree settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice, Environmental Protection Agency, and U.S. National Guard related to Griggs Walnut Superfund project. And whereas Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, over the course of his distinguished career, has instructed, mentored, inspired, and supported hundreds of Las Cruces Utilities associates, interns, students, officials, and partners. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the City of Las Cruces Utilities, on behalf of the City of Las Cruces, that we honor and thank Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, for his service, dedication, and accomplishments, and wish him happiness and fulfillment in his retirement. Approved, adopted, and proclaimed this 13th day of August 2020, Las Cruces Utilities Board of Commissioners. And all of the board have signed that commission, and here is a framed copy of the proclamation, which we will present to Dr. Garcia for him to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are more than welcome. And in addition, we have a parting gift for Dr. Garcia, a Nambe plate, Dr. Jorge A. Garcia, PE, Utilities Director, November 1989 to October 2020, in appreciation for your service and dedication to the Utilities Department, City of Las Cruces, and our citizens. The Las Cruces Utilities logo by the Las Cruces Utilities Board of Commissioners. There you are, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
If you want to come here, you can say a few words, Dr. Garcia.
I'm sorry.
For Dr. Garcia to say a few words. We'll have to switch into computer.
Here I am. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Thanks to the board. I was not anticipating this reception today, given the conditions with COVID and all that and the social distancing. So I really appreciate it. And, I've told Ms. Walsh that if she can do the job, she will do the job. And if she needs to make a phone call, she has my number. So thank you.
Well, thank you from all of us. And we're sorry there's no cake and ice cream, but we'll struggle along. And is there any other business to come before this board this afternoon?
Not from staff, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We will see you on September 10th for a Zoom-based work session, followed by a Zoom-based board meeting. Thank you all for the long afternoon.
I didn't do this long meeting on purpose, Mr. Chairman.
That's quite all right.
His last one to
I
go out.
promise it wasn't on purpose. So
And I don't care about protocol.
thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.